All right, welcome. This is the Something Ventured podcast. I'm Kent Lindstrom. I am your host. My guest back again is Vince Robinson. We're going to talk about gay issues in Silicon Valley this time. You know, I was going to call it the Big Gay Podcast after the, the South Park thing.
Oh, yeah.
I was worried no one would know it, though.
Well, no, everybody knows the donuts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Or ice cream. Maybe it's ice cream.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the Something Venture podcast. In this podcast, I explore the reality behind the Silicon Valley headlines as I sit down with people like Vincent. So how are you doing?
I'm good.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I'd hoped to do this before Pride, before the big Pride weekend. But
yeah, but you know, Pride Month is busy.
What's that?
Pride Month is busy. June's busy.
Right. Yeah, right.
Nobody has time.
I actually made it by the parade. My sister was in town, so I made it by the parade. And
That's right. And her daughters. I'm so glad to see that.
And they got to see it. I forgot how fun that was. So where have you been? Like, what? You've been out? Were you out of town?
I was out of town. I was in Vancouver.
Yeah.
It was in the big gay Vancouver.
Oh, they had a Pride thing.
Yeah, I missed it.
Yeah.
It's still big and gay though.
How was it? How's Vancouver?
You know, it's lovely. It's nice. The Canadians are nice.
Yeah, they're very nice people.
It's nice.
I work with Canadians.
I used to.
Yeah, they're fabulous.
It's a nice bunch.
They're really nice.
Nice bunch.
Big news in radio while you were gone. You heard about the Hourglass thing?
I did. I didn't know what to make sense. I didn't know what to make of it.
He's moving out on his own.
Well, you know, good.
I have no idea what that means.
Does that mean I don't have to hear him anymore?
I can't imagine. I like the show.
Mixed bag.
Well, it's one of those shows. If you like it, he does This American Life, which is the number one podcast on iTunes. It is number one. It's really good. He has 12 producers. I saw him interviewed. He has 12 producers.
So the show, when it's good, is really interesting.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Often it's quite pedestrian and sort of, just really.
Yeah.
I guess nobody really cares about what's going on in Minnesota. They don't.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, some of the tableaus are, and part of the problem too is that show, or a lot of those shows, by the time they get, through the chemical companies and the Monsantos that are sponsoring everything, which, I've gone to full blown ads now, right? Like Making Your World Kaiser and all this kind of stuff. And then by the time they get through the build up, you're like 10 minutes in before you realize, oh, I don't care about this particular topic.
Except what you do know is it is a just, verdant world or some such that some of their sponsors like to say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's really weird. Like that compromise they've come to where they basically have ads.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, PBS does. I mean
they're just flat out ads. Like
yep.
but they're like, well, it's not actually an ad. It's this is sponsored by Lexus, which is here's their thing and their thing. It's like, why don't just have the freaking ads? Like, I get that that's the trade-off.
It was a sponsorship when it was, the GE hour for I Love Lucy or whatever.
Yeah, it's straight up. So Hourglass is going on its own. I don't understand how public radio does not own that program, This American Life.
Well, that's public. That's the operative word is public.
And it's weird. Like, clearly I would assume he's doing it to make more money.
Presumably.
But
more control, like.
What does he not control?
Yes.
Isn't he the Sun King, the Louis XIV Sun King of that show?
Yeah, but I think it's a fairly hierarchical bunch there at, all the public radio stations and WBEZ. I mean, there are some that are pretty good and pretty out there, like the local one here, KLW, but the other ones, not so much.
I wonder, are they going to carry it anymore? Oh, he's just going to syndicate it.
If he gets edgier, maybe this will give him the opportunity to be edgier.
If it just becomes a pure podcast.
Wait a sec.
Oh, I didn't really have a sense of what he's doing. But yeah, that style is, I'm definitely going to avoid that.
So as we talk about the, Big Gay Podcast,
yeah,
which again, we're a month late or a couple weeks late.
Yeah.
Hourglass doesn't really fit into that. Okay.
No, not at all.
At all.
It doesn't really cover
Not a sensibility to be found.
Yeah. Well, he's the Jewish thing with him.
Yes, that's his story.
Oh my God. I've heard interviews with him where somebody said, oh, you have a really Jewish show. And this was like a professor of Judaism somewhere. And he just acted like he had no. What are you talking about? Like, it's just this guy. He wasn't being racist or mean. He was just like, well, there's these elements of your show that are common to Jewish tradition, whatever. And he just was like, I can't believe what you're saying to me.
If he said that to Terry Gross, he'd have bitch slapped him.
Yeah.
True story.
Exactly. NPR is really weird. Like
It's very weird.
It's a bunch of people who I'm not sure they're the most like they're good and I like the shows, but they're not they don't seem to be like the best free market talent on the planet.
No, it's a self-selection thing for one thing, obviously.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
But the other thing, it seems to me, is that, like the new guy, this was news, like they canceled the Black Show, the Tell Me More.
Wait, they had a Black Show on NPR?
They did. Nobody carried it out here.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, but you could get it on a podcast or, stream.
Okay, yeah.
And, they're like, we're going to be more diverse.
Yeah.
Oh, let's cancel this show.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Some German guy.
I didn't even know. Did they have a conservative on there at all?
Not anymore. Not when they fired, what's his name, Juan Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Who's not even conservative. He just said something contrarian. Eek.
Yeah.
They don't like that.
Anyway, well, let's
Go
get
on.
Let's get on with it. For God's, the last few podcasts we've done the African American thing. I've talked about sexism in Silicon Valley. After this, I got to lighten it up a little bit. Although I guess the gay thing's not that heavy.
Not anymore.
It'll be good.
Not anymore.
But we should start there. I saw the Normal Heart recently.
You did.
Have you seen this?
No.
It's it's a play. It's a really good play about who's it about? It's the guy. He's like a New York Larry Kramer.
Larry
or something
Kramer.
like that.
Yeah.
And it reminded me. So why don't we start out in the dark part, and then we'll move into the light later on. But so we're here in San Francisco. We're right near Dolores Park and the Castro district of San Francisco, which has been a historically gay district in San Francisco. And every weekend, Dolores Park and the Castro are just fabulous. It's warm. There's people, like hundreds of thousands of people out. The Castro on a Sunday afternoon is just like lovely. Dolores Park is lovely on a Sunday afternoon. But in terms of this particular issue and a lot of gay issues, it wasn't that long ago that it was pretty rough. Like compared to other things like in my lifetime, in my adult lifetime, it was very different here in San Francisco.
Yes, it was. So in the 70s, as I understand it, you could watch, The Life and Times of Harvey Milk or any other documentary to sort this all out.
Yeah.
But it was an ebullient, like over-the-top time in the 70s.
Yeah.
People were just carrying on.
Yeah. They call it the 4Ps. Post-pill, pre-plague.
Post-pill, pre-plague.
I've heard that before.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the 4Ps.
See, now I know.
Yeah.
And people were carrying on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I support.
Yeah.
But then, of course, what happened, of course, in the advent of AIDS, what became, the Sunday tea dance that everyone would go to, or the Sunday afternoon beer bust or drink fest or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Instead, it was a funeral.
Yeah. Well, and so this is in the Normal Heart. And you've seen a few movies like this where after the presumed victories of the 70s, it starts in the 80s, comes this disease, which we all know now as AIDS. We know it went through a terrible phase, and now it's controllable in the U.S., out of control in the rest of the world. But the thing in this particular, as I recall from being near the Castro district, which is now, I'm just drawing the contrast to this being sort of the new heart of Silicon Valley, Dolores Park, is on the edge of this place that just 20 years ago was in darkness. So I remember when I came here in the 90s, was working at Deloitte & Touche, very gay-friendly company, at least in San Francisco, openly gay partner. He would, most weekends, be at a funeral. He was 31 or 32, and he ended up being fine, thank God, but almost every weekend he was at a funeral in the Castro. Like, it was just this really dark time in this place really close to us.
And that went on until about the early mid-90s.
Right.
About the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Is when that sort of stopped.
Yeah.
When the cocktail was introduced.
Yep.
So...
Or figured out, or whatever it was with the cocktail.
Exactly. Our good friends at the Aaron Diamond Foundation for AIDS Research did that.
Is that who figured it out?
David Ho was the guy.
Really?
I think he won the Nobel Prize.
He's a research doctor, or what's he?
I think he won the Nobel Prize, actually, that year.
Yeah, that would be... Seems like that would be deserving.
That's meaningful.
Yeah.
And saved a lot of people. So even now, there are people who still contract the virus and are able to live with it as a chronic disease.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's of course, there's vaccine and all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
Don Francis is still working on a vaccine. If you ever read And the Band Played On, which I recommend. He is still working down in South City.
In San Francisco.
South San Francisco with his nephew,
Yeah.
who's a friend of mine, working on the vaccine, which should be introduced fairly soon.
It'll be a vaccine. So we will all take this vaccine. Our children will take it, or when do you take a vaccine? Like, how does that all work?
Well, probably at the advent, if you will, of sexual activity. So you wouldn't necessarily vaccine a child like you would measles or mumps or whatever. Right. You would wait a little longer until adolescence.
So it'd be more like, hey, if you're going to become sexually active, you need to know these things, and you need to get this thing. And
exactly.
Is it really going to happen, the vaccine?
Probably soon.
Yeah.
Although, condoms still need to be in the mix.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just have to say that as a responsible gay man.
Yeah.
Get your condoms on.
Yeah. Which people have gone the other way, or they've gotten a little too comfortable with the fact that, that AIDS it's not cured. It's under control with a very expensive drug regimen for the rest of your life.
That's
right. Different from cure.
It is not to be trifled with.
Yeah, exactly. So the surprising thing here in among the most liberal of cities, San Francisco, not that long ago in the 80s or 90s, and in New York as well, this disease emerges. And it's really this dark, like they call it gay cancer at first. There's symptoms that develop, and when you get the symptoms, you know you're going to die. And I think the cover gets rolled back on the fact that everyone's not okay with gay people as much as we thought, right? Like is kind of what happened. Like the disease got no money, if I understand correctly, it got no support. It just kind of took its toll until some people kind of spoke up and did something about it, right?
One of the things that I find surprising is that even in the 80s or late 70s in New York and San Francisco, everybody, kind of working at a Levi Strauss or a, Ralph Lauren, who might not have been around at the time.
Yeah.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
They all had, all straight people, all had gay friends.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And it was just frankly, a bacchanal at that point.
Yeah, right.
Well, as soon as people started to get sick, I'm not saying people pulled back, but I am saying, like, well, you knew that they were gay.
Right.
And everybody, but apparently in the 80s, there was this retreat.
Right.
Oh, well, we didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
We didn't. And there were some companies that really stood out, Levi being one of them.
Okay.
Because a significant part of their workforce died.
Okay. Levi's, Strauss.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in fashion, in certain industries, people really,
right,
rallied around that.
Yeah.
Other industries, though, even though everybody knew, there's no secret. You're working at Goldman Sachs, and everybody knows you go to Fire Island for the weekend. They were still like, "Oh, we didn't know anything about that."
Really?
Of course you did.
Right. And how is Goldman? By the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the podcast that Vincent, who's graciously joined us tonight, worked at Goldman Sachs, went to Stanford MBA school, and is now the CEO and founder of his own company here in Silicon Valley.
True story.
So is actually qualified to talk about Goldman Sachs.
It's been a long time since I was there. It's changed a good bit.
I should hope.
From what I can tell, when it went public, for one thing. So that's a change. But I liked it. What I knew is that they were good at it. And they were good at making money.
Yeah.
And
geniuses.
What they were really, it was a very accepting place.
Yeah.
Because I was like, when I went there, I'm like, well, I'm gay, and how's this going to work?
Yeah.
And, and black too. Oh my God, how's this going to work? It was great. I thought it was one of the best cultures I ever worked in.
Well, I think you get that in super meritocracies, and I think financial markets are pretty meritocratous. Like if you're sitting there, you can be whatever the hell you want, and you're trading some kind of something against the yen, and you're making millions of dollars a day, they're pretty okay. And if you're not, you could be the whitest, whatever. Like, we don't care. We want that other guy who makes all the money for us every day.
Well, I'm not so sure about the latter, I have to confess.
Right, yeah.
But
as I say it, yeah.
But I will say, I'm glad you said it, but I will say the former is definitely true.
Yeah.
well, you can do your thing, and if you want to suck dick, that's your business.
Right.
But, oh, did you just make $5 million today?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're listening.
Yeah.
That's how that
Yeah,
goes.
exactly. Well, that's a great business for it because in Silicon Valley, you sort of, it's very political and you work your way up and you're investing in things that won't come a cropper for 7 years. Wall Street, at least if you're a trader, on Monday, you're like, oh, the yen's going up against the euro. And then Tuesday, did the yen go up against the euro or not? Like, you get pretty humble pretty quick.
On this point, I was curious about something, tying a couple things together. So I read this article about the fight for young associates to leave the banks, to go to
the hedge funds.
To the hedge funds and the private equity firms. And I was like, so one of the things that distinguishes all these firms, not just Goldman, Goldman, Morgan Stanley, and all the rest, they're really trying to build really diverse, inclusive cultures. Yeah. They're not that diverse and that inclusive, but they are trying, and it's clear. Hedge funds, not so much. Right. Private equity, not so much. That's not their trip. So I'm wondering, one of the questions I had, I was like, well, so if I'm some young, talented, upstart, gay banker, can I easily transition over to a private equity firm or a VC firm?
I don't know.
Or a hedge fund? That's not my sense.
This is pretty interesting. So I tried to draw this arc where I'm like, well, we're in the middle of Silicon Valley where not very long ago there was kind of brutal discrimination against gays blocks away from where the new kind of crucible of Silicon Valley is, this sort of mission district where Twitter is and all of that. And as I talk to different executives, like, what's it like to be gay in Silicon Valley? If you're a woman, you get a fairly clear answer about what that's like. And you can listen to the last couple podcasts to figure that out. But being gay, I didn't get quite as clear an answer because we have executives here who are gay. We have Keith Raboy, who's at Twitter, Peter Thiel, who's richer than anybody ever needs to be. I mean, there's multiple people who are well known in Silicon Valley. So at first blush, I thought, well, maybe it's just a fine place to be gay. Like, maybe that's fine. And then as in talking to a few CEOs of companies, the answer that I got was, it can be, but it can also be similar to the subtler abuse that women get. And so one example is I was talking to a CEO who's gay, and a venture capitalist. He said not to say venture capitalists are all like this, but he said a lot of times you will get fairly insensitive comments. And one of the ones he cited was, well, somebody told me I present like a pansy, right? Like fairly offensive stuff. So his point was like, you're not really precluded from anything in particular, but there is some sort of concept of like people not even thinking that you might be gay if you don't tell them, and then saying all kinds of shit that you wouldn't say or probably shouldn't say. Right. So
absolutely. I'll tell you, I was really struck by this actually, because I didn't know. So I don't know Peter Thiel at all.
Yeah, sure.
But Keith Rabois, I do. Or did. Right? He lived downstairs from me my freshman year in college.
Yeah, okay.
I had no idea that he was gay. And I read that article about how he was catting off with somebody inside the, square, I guess it was.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, oh, which I actually thought was a good thing. Not that, I mean, I'm no judge around the catting off. I don't judge anyway. Yeah. But I was thinking it's good for people to see that this actually happens, not just men to women, but it happens all the way around, right?
Wait, so what is by this? What do you?
Well, basically, attraction. People getting together.
Yeah.
Right? So the other thing I was thinking about, but notice with Peter Thiel and Keith Rabois both, is they started their own things or joined early, early stage things.
Right.
The big companies, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about somebody gay can't start a firm. Maybe that's true. Maybe a gay person can't get funding for some great idea. Right. Maybe that's true. I doubt it.
Yeah.
But maybe. I don't know.
Right.
What we're really talking about is advancing inside established companies, which exist in Silicon Valley at this point because the industry's been around for a while. Yeah. So what we're really talking about is, can you rise to the ranks of CEO or rank of CEO as as a gay person.
Yeah.
And my pushback around that is, I mean, you could.
Yeah.
But I think the broader point and the more interesting point is, as a gay person, can you do what you want to do? If you want to start a company,
Yeah.
great. Can you get capital, the whole bit? Great.
Yeah.
If you want to be CEO or senior VP of some area that you care about, great. That's what matters.
Yeah.
I think this whole business that these people are about, is there a gay tech CEO? Who gives a shit?
Right.
That's not the point.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard this business, and there was a piece on NPR after I got your email. There was a piece on NPR today about this, what's it called, Start Out.
Yeah.
Oh, and do these young people know that they could be a gay tech CEO?
Yeah.
And I was like, really? Maybe they have no interest in technology at all.
Right.
The point is, can you be a functioning, productive, sociable person in your society?
Yeah.
In your social circle, in your industry, whatever it is.
Right.
And increasingly the answer is yes. Maybe tech is lagging.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a boys' club down there anyway, but...
Right. But is this true that tech's lagging? I mean, there's a notable number of like gay people in technology, right? I mean, you know who they are. They exist. They're not exist. And in some sense, it's fairly binary. Well, here's where it's not binary. So if you look at one of the things that came up was the Fortune 500. There's actually no openly gay CEO in any of the Fortune 500. 11% of them are women. But there's no openly gay CEO. There's a recent, with one exception, maybe. There's a recent thing on CNBC. I don't know if you saw this. There's a video where they were talking about this, gay CEO. Why aren't there any? Like, why wouldn't there be? And somebody said, well, Tim Cook, right? Like, what about that, the CEO of Apple? And there was this super awkward pause where no one else said anything. And the guy was like, wait, is that not a, what? So that's kind of it's a little bit of a weird one. So he's pretty well known to be gay, doesn't think it's anyone's business, true, but doesn't really talk about it. Like that, I don't know how to process that whole thing. So, there's two parts. So first of all, there's no openly gay CEOs in all of the Fortune 500. Seems a little surprised. That's different from women who, hey, they're underrepresented, but there's 50 of them out of 500. That's too few, I guess. But as opposed to like zero, that's a little bit notable.
Well, it seems to, I'll tell you something, what I've learned in my practice, being a search consultant, I'm like, people will be, when they're a board or they're hiring people, they're like, well, we should go out to dinner with the candidate and his wife.
Is it really?
And it's always the candidate and his wife.
Really?
And then occasionally it's, and her husband.
Yeah, but not his partner.
And I'll bring my wife, and it's always my wife.
Yeah.
And, of course, I think two things about this. I'm like, first of all, do you realize what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like, do you realize how exclusionary you're actually being?
Yeah, exactly.
But more importantly, if you, board member, bring your wife to the dinner and your candidate is gay and he's bringing, let's just say for the sake of argument, his husband.
Yeah.
I'll turn to the lesbians in a minute.
Yeah.
She is going to have so much fun with him because that's how that goes.
Right.
That's why there was a show, Will and Grace. That's why.
Right.
They're going to be like, you should totally hire him. He's fabulous.
Yeah.
Of course. And his husband is fabulous.
Right.
That's how that goes.
Yeah.
Now, the lesbian thing, which I'm not going to comment on too much.
Yeah.
But I'm interacting with something right now that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Where it's interesting, the hiring manager is Mormon.
Okay.
Will bring his wife, and then a candidate will bring her wife as well.
Okay.
How's that going to
shouldn't
work?
this be okay with the Mormons? Like,
I think it. Well, I don't know.
I don't know what their rules
weren't
are.
they the ones who were funding Prop 8?
Oh, geez. Yeah, we got to talk about that. Right.
Anyway, but what I'm fascinated by is the wife is one of the most cultured people I've ever met. she knows food really well, wine really well. She lived in Paris. She has gone to cooking school. She's gone to fancy school. She knows everything about everything about everything.
Right.
So there's nothing not interesting about her.
Yeah.
And in fact, all that is going on there is that it's two women. That's it.
Right.
So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, well, I think in my mind, the whole gay thing was over. Not over, all over, but the shouting, the simplistic way to put it. When moms started meeting their sons' boyfriends from college, and they were more or less like, oh, he's lovely. Like, I like him. He's a nice guy. I'm not that angry. Like, I don't hate gays. Your father might take a little longer, but he's a great guy. I'm just happy for my kid. And I think once you got to that point, at some point, I mean, I don't know. That seems like that's when people are like, oh, there's nothing weird or scary or crazy. They're completely lovely, and I'm on board. That's my sense.
That's definitely been my experience.
Now, I don't think homophobia or mistreating gays is erased from this world in any sense. But it's one of those things where, like, familiarity, like, you meet people and you're like, oh yeah, now that I met the actual guy, like the thing that I hate, you're like, oh, you're kind of nice. I kind of like you.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think it's gone though, because when I was at a wedding some years back, good friends with the bride, she's terrific, and her brother said to me, we're just having a cigarette, which we shouldn't have been doing, but we were anyway.
Those will cause cancer, you know.
They sure will, and I
thank you. That's a public service announcement.
Tell everyone that it's a true story. Still,
stay away from the cigarettes, kids.
You have a drink and a cigarette. And we were having a cigarette, and all of a sudden I was telling some story, and all of a sudden he said, "Are you gay?"
He was a Southerner.
Yeah, it was Oklahoma.
Oh boy, that's not.
And I was like, "Well, yeah. What was your first clue?" And his girlfriend or whatever was like, "How could you say such a horrible thing and such an accusation?" And I said, "Whoa. Not an accusation."
Wait, what was his tone? What is his tone?
Are you gay?
Okay, I can't quite read that, but go ahead.
Right. I wish I had, TV. You could see my eyes.
Okay, yeah.
Slit down. And I wasn't horrified, but I was like, well, yeah. She was horrified. And what I had to convey to her was, don't be horrified.
Right.
He's right.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Yeah. And did you tell her it gets better?
I didn't say that because that hadn't caught on yet. Dan.
She teed it up for you. Did she ask you if you could change?
I tried to change.
Even if you wanted to?
Never tried to change.
Even if you could? So heading down on the Tim Cook path. So this is kind of interesting. I think this is where our Dan Savage comes in, but maybe not. So this is just reported in the press. I don't know that Tim Cook is known to be gay. Who the hell cares? It's nobody's business. Is that okay? Like, he runs Apple, and we'll get to Mozilla in a second, but he runs Apple. Does he have a responsibility? Is that just the right way to be? Like, none of your business? Is that not helping the gay thing, or does it?
So I think I think I'm gonna express an opinion more than anything else. I can't really comment on like whether it's what the.
I feel like I'm walking on thin ice. I don't even know why.
Task force would say, or that all these gay groups. I don't know what they would say. I'd say two things. Yeah. One, everybody knows. If you look at him and you know what you're looking at, everybody knows he's gay. He has gay face. It's a thing.
But he does, and he doesn't deny it. He talks about being discriminated against growing up. He's a white guy, so it's guessing like what
are you left with? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah, I mean, I think it's well known, and he's well respected.
Well, the second thing is, Loves, meaning Tim Cook. Mm-hmm. You can be out or not or whatever.
Yeah.
The thing that I think I sit with the most is I'm like, Apple is kind of the gayest company around without being gay.
Yeah.
Because it's cool and slick and all this stuff.
Oh, they got the rainbow apple.
Yeah. So shouldn't you just go with it? Or is it Wall Street? Is it analysts who would be
Holy crap, right, Wall Street. Yeah.
We don't know about this. He might die of AIDS soon.
Wow, that's cynical, but I hadn't even thought of that.
I hadn't thought about that either, but I think I had thought that before. I'm thinking,
because he seems, there was a point there, God love him, where somebody said to him, it was something like, why are you making? They were making some environmental decision, and he was like, and some analyst was like, this isn't a profitable decision. And he's like, if you think every decision I make needs to be profitable, don't invest in my company.
Yep.
And he was pissed. So he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who shies away from any kind of a fight. But what about the using him as an example? What is the? Just explain Dan Savage real briefly, and I'll bring it home with like my question about.
So I'll come back to Tim in a minute because
this is all heading down the path to a question about Tim.
We'll go to Dan Savage. So Dan Savage, whom I have to confess, I get a little impatient these days.
Yeah. Nobody who listens to this podcast knows who he is. I don't think.
Probably not. Okay,
I know who he is.
So
I find him very compelling.
He went to the University of Illinois as a drama major.
Yeah.
He is dramatic.
Yep.
Is his personality. So he moves to Seattle. He gets himself a gig with the alternative weekly there called The Stranger, where he writes this column called Savage Love. And I'm giving him free publicity right now only because if you go back into the archives, that was some of the funniest shit you ever read.
And what is Savage Love?
It was a love life column.
Right.
Dear Dan.
Yeah.
I kind of want to get a butt plug up my ass, but does that make me gay?
Oh, geez. Wow.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
All right.
And he's like, you idiot, it doesn't make you gay. Just do it. Whatever you want to do is your business. So it was
like Dear Abby for the
love-lorn, sex-lorn, whatever the story is. Yeah.
So why?
So then he goes big.
Yeah.
No, he's like, and I understand that because he has a public persona. He can use it. It gets better.
Yeah.
Except now he's kind of a shrill dick.
But what's the? Right. But what's his like? I believe I heard him talk, and his position was like. It's heavy, but moral responsibility to come out.
Well, so here's the thing. So
unless you're a kid in Oklahoma, if we're picking on Oklahoma, you're a kid in some community where that's not okay, and you're going to be abused and hurt as a result of it. Because otherwise, I believe what he says is that everybody who's gay should come out because you're hurting everyone else if you don't. Well, roughly, I think what he is that. I'm paraphrasing right.
Back. This is Keith Haring, right? And that's why there was National Coming Out Day, October 13th.
Wait, Keith Haring. All of you.
Keith Haring, the artist. The artist.
Wait, what? He's gay?
Well, he's dead, but he was gay.
Okay, there's gay artists now. What's going on?
Well, in the 80s.
What? Wait. So what did Keith Haring about coming out?
He started, or he didn't start, but he drew art for National Coming Out Day.
Okay.
Which is October 13th.
Okay.
Or the 10th, or something like that. Anyway, I think it's 13th.
Don't get it wrong, or it'll be awkward.
It's the 13th.
Yeah.
And so it was about come out, and that actually changes lives, which it does.
Right.
The more straight people who know gay people.
Yeah.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
It's true. What I'm less persuaded by, in the likes of Dan Savage, and to be fair, I thought he was, great sex columnist, thought it was terrific. What I wasn't compelled by is, well, you have to come out. That had already been done 3 other times in waves in the mid-'80s, the late 80s, the early 90s. And if you didn't get Rachel Maddow got the message. I got the message. Everybody got the message.
Yeah.
Just come out.
Yeah.
But I guess you just have to repeat it.
Okay, so given that, is Tim Cook violating this concept of, hey, just come out and say it, or is it none of anybody's business?
It seems like, I think I'm back on this Wall Street thing. It's strange. It's the world's most valuable company.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong? Really, the shares dive because the CEO is gay?
Yeah. So the thesis would be he's perfectly calibrating. It's like if you know he's gay, he's like, yeah, shut it. Like, yeah, we got it. Like, I don't need to say anything more about that. And if you're just like oblivion and in New York and you might actually care, he's like, I'll let you have your dream too. Is that?
But again, in New York, if we're talking about like Wall Street, New York,
yeah.
How much money are you making? How much, what's the net?
Yeah.
And that's what we care about.
Yeah.
And if that's good, then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I guess that's right. It's an interesting one because I've brought it up. Most people I bring that up to say it's none of your business. I completely agree it's none of my business, except that a straight person would never do that. Like if you say, hey, great to meet you, you run a company, you married or what? You wouldn't go, none of your business. You'd say something along the lines, I'm dating someone right now. I haven't figured it out. I mean, which of the answers you give is none of your business, but you don't say, I'm not going to give you an answer because it's none of your business.
Right.
So that's why I found it a little.
I just think he should, if he truly is gay, he should just, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's Apple, for the love of God.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the international thing. Where,
it could be.
And by the way, it could be something more thoughtful. It could be like, the problem is people in my factory in, name a country, will get attacked if I say that. So I'm not going to say it because those people are going to get hurt. It could be something like...
It could be...
super thoughtful like that.
He is one of... I was reading today, his style is much more consensus building, and he's really trying to build this culture of people who care about each other. So if that's the whole company...
Yeah.
And he symbolizes that. What was that guy's name? BP?
Oh, yeah.
Lord Brown, whatever.
Yeah.
And he came out after running BP because he's like, well, I didn't want, the gay guys on the rigs to get taken down by a bunch of meatheads.
You know what? I bet that's it. I bet if you were having I don't know what he drinks, beer with him, it came to cookies in maybe beer.
White wine. You kidding me?
Him and me both. I bet it would be something like that. It'd be like, it's none of your business. Obviously, I support the squillion people at our company who are gay. And there's a practical reason that people in China at my company would be hurt, rejected, economically impacted, and that's why I do it.
And the company itself, right? That's a tricky calculus. As we're talking about it, we think about it, and I'm like, not to mention Wall Street.
Yeah. Well, see, I think I learned something today, or at least learned a new thesis.
I think I did too.
So you mentioned Mozilla briefly. This was an interesting story. The CEO of Mozilla funded Prop 8. We should talk about Prop 8. So here in San Francisco, because people listen to this all over the world, here in California, there was a proposition on the ballot. We do not have a representative government, apparently. We need to vote on every freaking thing ourselves. There was a proposition that would, I always get this wrong, so I swear to God, it's lucky I didn't give money to the wrong side. Was Proposition 8 the one that you want to give money to or not if you support gay marriage?
It was no on Prop 8 if you supported gay marriage.
So Proposition 8 would make gay marriage illegal in California.
Which, in fact, it did when it passed.
And so that ends well, by the way. Eventually,
it's a ride, but it does end well.
Yeah. So the CEO of Mozilla, which makes the very popular Firefox browser and is a nonprofit, is based in San Francisco and has many gay employees.
And it's very, open source and very progressive and all the rest. Yep.
Turns out he gives money to support Proposition 8.
Now, was it such that he didn't know which side?
I don't think so.
To give to? No, he's too smart for that.
Yeah, I guess thought gay marriage was not right for whatever reason, and had the thought, and then took the thought to the next level, which was to put money against it in a system where campaign contributions are made public. This becomes public. He's the CEO of Mozilla, and he's fired. He resigns, whatever, but he leaves. And the thing that you heard was, well, was he fired for having a thought? Meaning a point of view, and you didn't, you fired him for not having the right point of view, and therefore he was out the door. That was the sort of our big Mozilla anti-gay guy getting fired story here in San Francisco.
Well, I think that it was a rookie move on his part.
You know what?
Let's start there.
That's all it was.
It was a rookie move.
Yeah.
If you're the CEO of some prominent thing, you don't just give money willy-nilly to whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't work anymore because you're prominent.
Yeah.
And it's going to get picked up.
Yeah.
Fine. Equally important is really this is the nonprofit environment where you're currently working.
Yep.
And you're running something. Really, this is how you're going to play this?
Yeah.
That you're giving something to the entire world for free,
Yeah.
which means all of God's creatures,
Yeah.
not religious here, but all of God's creatures. It's an idiom.
Yep.
And you're like, yeah, but
Right.
that's, you know what, when I read that, I thought it wasn't a question for me of whether, kind of his support or lack thereof of same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
It was judgment.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be a CEO, that's your stock
I
and
found
trade.
this one very simple. The complicated one for me, the complicated one, not that complicated, but you could see a smart Harvard professor on the concept of somebody graffitis your garage, which is say misdemeanor, costs $1,000, but they graffiti something that's hateful, and now it's a capital crime or whatever it is. That is a little complicated because the only difference between those two things is a thought in someone's head. And whatever you think of that's complicated. This one seemed to me like he was the CEO of a company serving the pleasure of the board. And if the board said, I don't think your behavior is something that helps our company, helps us attract employees, helps us sell more stuff, you're gone.
You're out.
You may be right, you may be wrong.
But it doesn't matter because it's our job to decide.
So I didn't think this one was very, very complicated at all.
Although apparently other people did.
Yeah. This one didn't bother me.
But let's put this one to the side because I'm I forget the guy's name.
Yeah.
Eminently forgettable. Footnote.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I would have paid attention.
Yeah.
But I was like, whatever. You know what, Dove Charney?
Yeah.
You know what? You
Yeah.
kind of effed up. That's what I got for you.
Moving on. So I have a couple of things left. I want to do Pride Then and Now. The Parade.
Whoop,
Then
whoop.
and Now. Which everybody should see once. Talk a little bit about whether there's a gay mafia here in Silicon Valley. I got some answers to that in talking to people. But so let's take the Pride Parade. Happens every end of June here in San Francisco. It's a crazy parade led by the mayor of San Francisco. When I saw the parade this year, the portions I saw were one after another, kind of crappy float, but from some company like PG&E or Airgas or just companies like, hey, we work at this Wells Fargo and we're proud and we're here, which is fairly touching. But how is that parade like? How's that evolved from the parade I would go see in whenever it started? I don't know, to today.
It started actually 44 years ago.
44 freaking years ago.
Yes, the first parade was in 1970, the year I was born.
Holy
So, this is what I would say.
Yeah.
First of all, it was already, by the time I arrived, it was already getting sort of corporate-y and all this sort of stuff, but it was still really fun and a nice, cool vibe.
Yeah.
It is now much more corporate, much
Right.
more advertising opportunities, all the rest. Again, I support that.
Yeah. By the way, big victory, right? You don't want to be a fringe group.
Exactly.
That's the whole point. It's like, yep, the gap.
But it's a trade-off there because what was great about it is that it was fringy. It represented fringe. It was edgy, and that's what was fun about the parade.
Right.
Now you're like, I didn't go this year. I haven't gone in, I don't know, a decade.
In some sense, though, it won, right?
It
like
won.
When people have a little company that's a startup, it's like, well, we don't want to be a little company. We want to be a big company. We want to be like Apple.
It's a big deal.
Right? Like, and so the fact that it's now a big parade that's not as fun is kind of a victory.
It's a victory. Now, just a passing aside, we're really happy that it rivals New York because it is San Francisco. And,
Oh, wait, who's got the big parades now?
well, New York has the big parade.
Bigger
the
than here?
biggest, yeah,
Oh,
because of more
really?
people.
What about anything in France?
No.
West Hollywood?
No.
So it's
San Francisco. It's basically New York and San Francisco.
East Coast, West Coast, San
Yeah,
Francisco.
these
New
are
York.
these are the big parades.
Vancouver have a pride?
They do.
Okay.
I think it's in August though. Los Angeles has theirs the same weekend in
is
San
August
Francisco.
like June in French? Is that why? Like what? Oh, God.
Mais oui.
And when is the New York one?
New York is at the same weekend in San Francisco, last weekend in June.
Oh, really?
And the whole thing started, of course, in New York with Stonewall and the whole bit.
Oh, hell yeah.
But it really, San Francisco is where the gay liberation movement grew up
Yeah.
and matured, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's a wonderful parade, and I will never forget. I've been a number of times, but I always weep openly when the P flag goes by.
Oh, hell yeah.
Parents and friends of lesbian and gays. Everybody weeps.
Oh, super touching.
It's very touching. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, and that's the support that people wanted.
Yeah.
They didn't actually want the Gap. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Levi, etc.
Yeah.
Absolute.
Yeah.
Holla.
No, I get choked up when I see that too. And then for a while, though, now you see it so much, it's pretty common. But when it was like the two dads, the two moms, like that
Yes.
whole thing.
That's touching.
Yeah. But early on, it was the P flag with the, oh my God, like that's that old, like, frumpy middle-aged person who like met her son's college boyfriend. It was like, yeah.
And they
I'm
used
in.
to do it. I remember the last time I went and sat at the parade, they would do, this is in the past now, they still might do it. The cities they were from.
Yeah.
So you would see like these little towns in California.
Oh, yeah.
Alturas and Yuba
Yeah.
City
Yeah.
and, P Flag Woodland. And it's just so
Yeah.
sweet. You're like, oh my God, thank you.
It's amazing. Well, let's finish off on the. I talked to a bunch of people. Is there a gay mafia? Which is funny. People say there's a gay mafia in San Francisco, in Silicon Valley, and they're putting together that there's guys like Peter Thiel and Keith Boy. There's some venture capitalists like Amy Arrett or whoever it is, like who, a lovely woman who just got married. Or is about to get married, or it's within a week, forward or backwards, or
Congratulations to her.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Is there a gay mafia? I'll ask you what you think. I got an answer from a few people. It's kind of funny, but
I'd love to hear their answer. My answer is not really.
yeah,
is the answer.
yeah,
Right? Because it's distant. There's a distance that goes on.
yeah,
Like, for sure, there are mafias of all sorts, right? There's the philanthropy mafia. There's the industry, whatever, pick an industry,
Right.
the mafia, people who control it. It seems to me that technology, Silicon Valley, is this amalgam of a few different industries, i.e. tech,
yeah,
i.e. Sorry, losing my train of thought.
yeah,
Financing,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
venture capital, private equity, all the
Sure.
rest, right? That crowd, it seems dispersed enough that I'm sure there are gay
Yeah.
people in each and every one of those groups.
yeah.
Is it a mafia?
Yeah. Well, that was the answer that I got. So when people refer to mafia, I think what they mean is a group of people who help each other quite a bit, like benefit. So the PayPal mafia is fairly famous. It's a bunch of people who got rich together at PayPal. They fund each other. They invest in each other's companies. They buy each other's companies when they have the opportunity. It's a mafia in that sense. You're part of the family, you benefit. The answer I got when I talked to a bunch of gay people was they're like, not really. There's plenty of gay people, and they're successful, and they don't discriminate against other gay people. They're not trying to like particularly help them out or not. But what they said is this organization start out
Right.
purely professional organization, gay, purely professional though. Like, it's not about being gay. It's about just being a gay entrepreneur or executive or investor in Silicon Valley. They're like, that's the organization that's actually going to become the thing that you think exists now.
Exactly.
That was the answer that I got.
That organization has
Start Out, yeah.
has been around for, it had a different name if I remember correctly. It's been around for at least a decade.
Yeah.
At least.
Okay.
Maybe more.
I did not know that.
Because one of the founders graduated from business school, meaning Stanford Business School, about 2002-ish,
Yeah.
3, and started after that. And I've seen all these things go by,
Yeah.
but because I don't work in tech, I wasn't paying that close attention.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, this is exactly the mafia that people are trying to create.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you something.
Yeah.
The guy who started Venture One, remember Venture One?
Yeah. Venture One was like a database thing?
It was the database thing
of all
back
the
in
venture fundings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was gay.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was very supportive. So there was informal
Yeah.
support of gay entrepreneurship generally.
Yeah.
He's one of my advisors, even though I'm in a totally different space.
Yeah.
but he was really helpful, and there were other people who were really helpful. So there was,
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a mafia,
Yeah.
but there was a network if you could tap into it,
Right.
for whatever your pursuit was.
Yeah.
That had capital, and I got some great advice from one of my good friends who worked for a private equity firm.
Mm-hmm.
Really helpful, and the connection was gay. That was our connection.
Yeah. Yeah. So the answer I got to, is there a gay mafia in Sarah? Is like, it sounds great. Not really, but there will be.
Not yet, but there will be.
And it's and Start Out, which sounds like a fabulous. I don't know much about it. It sounds like a great organization to me. Is possibly going to be the vector that happens in.
Well, what I imagine will happen, just to, my thought here is, after people, Nerd Nation, the kind of youngsters are done with their sort of creation and making all this money and whatever.
Yeah.
They are still of a certain demographic.
Yeah.
And so that's when they're going to plug in and be allies, and I encourage them to do that. I imagine they would, right? I mean, it's
so,
like, my roommate was gay, and it was totally fun. We were awesome. He's awesome, and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen. It's going to be like, he's starting a company.
Yeah.
And I had dinner, my wife and I had dinner with, Mark and Steve. It was great.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, I think we've done this thing. If I was like, I tried to do this arc from like starting out in the dark days in the Castro and ending up in the light days in Silicon Valley. If I was Ira Glass with my 12 producers, it would be perfect to be like, 3 acts. No, I'm sorry, 3 acts. Act 1, a man, a building, a
Nobody
woman.
wants to hear that. Really.
It's not what you think.
Yeah. It's exactly what you think.
It's
Ira,
exactly
it's what you think.
Anyway, we've come a long way. We're not all the way, right?
But we're a lot of the way there.
Yeah.
I think.
Does it get better?
It gets better.
All right.
It gets better. And it's getting better, not just in the New Yorks and San Franciscos,
Yeah.
but the Pittsburghs
Yeah.
and the Clevelands and the Indianapolises.
All right. All right. This has been the Something Ventured podcast.
Thank you.
The gay podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.